Since its launch in 2005, Broad Street Review has sought to promote the exchange of viewpoints rather than any particular point of view. To that end, we welcome commentary from professionals and amateurs alike about the performing and visual arts, as well as any other field of interest to our eclectic group of contributors. The following interview was submitted to Broad Street Review, powered by Rep Radio. I'm your host, Darnell Radford, and today I am here with Whit MacLaughlin of New Paradise Laboratories. And I was thinking about the last time we had chatted, or Rep Radio has chatted with you.
The last time?
It was 2012. It was for the production 27.
Right.
And I remember talking to you about it because I was very excited. But I also had a full schedule, and I think it sold out. You know, like,
you didn't get to see it?
I didn't get to see it.
Get out.
But I had this like amazing conversation about it, and I was like, I can't wait to go. And then the next day I was like, oh, the tickets are all, and I was like, well, at least a ton of people get to see this. So, okay. And then before that, I think we chatted on direct me if I'm wrong. Todd chatted with you about just your direction in general. Sure. But some of the most notable experiences I've had in our theater community have been with New Paradise Laboratories. And they were earlier on in the start, like before we got with Rep Radio. I remembered seeing Prom at Drexel, and Fate Book was one of those that really stood out for me too. But we're here to talk about Gumshoe, which is part of the We Are Detectives.
It's called We
event.
the Detectives, which is kind of a play on words with We the People from the Constitution.
Yeah, and so I thought it was a really interesting concept, and before I secured my ticket, I knew that was something I was going to want to come chat with you about, so I reached out before I got to see it. And then my ticket was on the 15th, and on the 13th it was Barrymore recommended, so congratulations on that. So tell us about Gumshoe.
Well, Gumshoe sprang from the fact that there are the Rosenbach Library and the Free Library of Philadelphia are kind of in cahoots together now. Mm-hmm. And it so happened that they had scheduled two exhibitions of rare materials dealing with early detective literature, which they have a vast collection for various reasons. And so they had scheduled these exhibitions simultaneously, and they were interested in trying to figure out what could connect the two and how they could imagine their normal patrons at the Rosenbach coming to the Free Library and the Free Library patrons going to the Rosenbach. So could we figure out a way to connect the two exhibitions? So we came in and just started thinking about it. And one of the things we thought about was Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, because one of the principal features of both exhibitions were pages from the original manuscript of The Murders in the Rue Morgue by Edgar Allan Poe, which he wrote in 1841 here in Philadelphia. And arguably it's the first detective story. This guy, Auguste Dupin, who was his investigator. And was not a professional, because at that time there was no such thing as a detective. Yeah. There was no such thing really as a police force. It was just starting the idea of police, or of a profession called policing. And so that story, written in Philadelphia when arguably Poe was happy, which didn't happen often, but he was happy in Philadelphia, which I always find like, of course, interesting. So anyway, so we that manuscript was going to be in both shows. So I thought, well, let me just start reading Murders in the Rue Morgue and see what comes. So what came was, over time, was a perspective and a sense of the materials that were going to be in both exhibitions, what a rare material is, and what it could mean to a city, and what it does mean to a city. So that's how we got started.
And when did the conversations begin?
Oh my gosh. Really officially it started about a year ago.
Okay. And
then the funding, everything, the go was in September. So we had about 6 months really to get it all to happen.
To tune it in.
It was not a lot of time.
Yeah. But I always, I was upstairs talking to my coworker, and I said, "Oh, and by the way, they did this other thing that was really good, and then this one piece that was really good." And every time a new Paradise Laboratories production, gets the buzz, starts to build the traction, you start to think about how much effort, how much passion is in the work that you produce. And to experience it all, you can clearly see that. Not that the work that goes up and goes down in a couple of months is not equally as passionate, but you can tell that there's a whole lot of attention to detail in all of this.
Well, we make our own work from scratch. Other companies do that too, but we pay careful attention to performance as an experience, not just as something you witness, but it has to reach out off the stage in some way. And this is a really good example of that because there is no stage really. Yeah. This is an interactive piece.
So I walk into the library. I'm there literally a minute before it starts. So I get there and I see a police officer or a security guard with a familiar face. And we get checked in and we were separated into groups. And so immediately we meet each other. There's groups of 5, I think 5 or 6. And we're wondering where the other groups are going and what their experience is going to be like, but we'll find out later. How did the process, or for the experience, how did the experience portion for the audience? How was that tooled? How was that put together?
Well, there are 4 groups that move through 4 different experiences, and they actually track through some of the same things. It's just how we figured out. We decided that we didn't want more than 9 or 10 people per group, and so that's the official amount. And it depends on the day how many people are going to be in each group. But so we hung out in the library a lot, and a lot. And I saw kind of every nook and cranny of the building.
And it's a beautiful building.
It is. It's kind of designed like a rabbit warren or a clue game or something. It's got there's little passageways all through it that take you from one section to another, and they tend not to be for the public.
Yeah. And
so and little hallways and doors that lead into odd little back rooms, and the more we watched, the more we came to know about the building, a couple things became clear. One, Gumshoe had to function while the library was open. And it wasn't going to be a thing where we stopped the library from doing what it does to say, "Hello, everybody, we're doing a show."
Yeah.
It didn't want to be a show where people kind of stood in the library and watched scenes. It was going to be interactive while the library was functioning. So we knew it had to be undercover. So that realization that we're talking secret agents in the library really guided the whole experience. From that point on, it was clear kind of how the show had to move through the space, and we didn't want to have to change what the librarians did. We didn't want to disturb the patrons. And so this idea that you're tracking people, you're tailing people, you're ducking into side alleys and so forth became kind of the fun of the show. And then, because of Murders in the Rue Morgue, we got an idea about, and because Poe was a famous hoaxer, he liked perpetrating hoaxes, and because at this present moment we have a lot of concern about fact, fiction, and falsehood.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of weave together a story that included Poe, included aspects of Murders in the Rue Morgue, included the idea of sleuthing, and blend that really into a situation where the library itself is the central character.
Yeah.
You know, site-specific work. Basically, you're saying that the room that you're doing the performance in is the set. But really, what is a set? It's a particular place in time with certain kind of spaces that actors move in meaningfully. So space and time are what make a set. So when you're in a real place, there's time and there's architecture. So how people move through that space in layers of time in a building like the Free Library becomes the crucial thing. There's a thing called, okay, ready? This is an academic term. It's critical spatial practice, which is the way that time and space intersect in social life. So how do people occupy space and time? That involves architecture, it involves economics, it involves sociology, it involves the psychology of an era, it involves the religious context of an era. So that is what makes site-specific work interesting. So when we decided that the library was going to be the central character, we had to start thinking about layers of history in that building. And so thus the story, such as it is, began to appear. So here's what you do. As you know, you go in and you're sorted into 4 groups, and those 4 groups become your sort of gang. And you're conducted through the building in this kind of bobsled kind of feeling where you're just careening through the space, investigating a crime that may or may not have happened.
Yeah.
And it involves a Poe document that's recently been found under the floorboards of the Poe house, where Poe lived in 1843 after he wrote Murders in the Rue Morgue. And it involves some prominent Philadelphians in the 1930s, and it involves, one of whom started the Rosenbach collection, Dr. A.S.W. Rosenbach. And so you begin to kind of put together the details of clues that are I don't know. I think there's something like, we started to count and then gave up. I think there are like 235 clues or something that all have to be set by the stage managers in advance of the show. It's wow. quite a job. And so you start tracking this. You are given tasks. You're given book titles to invent. There's just all this way that the show leads you through a kind of a deep experience of the library. Yeah,
I love the fact that everyone gets a case book, because it reminded me of Ghost Rider on PBS, and that was something I watched when I was 11 and 12.
Oh, nice! Yeah.
And you had a case book, and you were solving the case along with the cast as you're watching it, and so on. So I thought that element was pretty cool. I was in the rare books section there were some interesting things hiding in the bookshelves that were clearly like not a part of the rare books collection.
Right. Well, we had, there's the Elkins Room, which is a library within the library that not everybody knows about. It's like this amazing room with what used to be a private collection, and there are some strange anomalies in that room, and we have to have well, I won't tell you if it's a real librarian or not, because one of the things that the story does is the way it works is you begin to incorporate everyone you see as potentially involved in the show. So people ask afterwards, it's like, were those people actors or were they librarians? And some people like, is it scripted or is it improvised? What is it? So all of those things.
It had a really great flow. I mean, it definitely. I know that there is some scripted element to it, but it
it's
did
actually
have
scripted absurdly.
Yeah, it had a very casual flow to it. Plus, I recognized some faces, but they stayed in character the whole time.
And nobody is performing for you; they are just talking right to you. So it's like all the time. And I hope for an interactive show that you didn't feel like called out. People often don't like participatory shows because they think they're going to be asked to, quack like a duck or something. And there's nothing of that in this. It all has a kind of an easy flow, and there's nothing embarrassing that you're asked to do.
Yeah, I think the way it was. The way it all carries out, there is one librarian that kind of reminds us of the time. That reminds us whether we're on schedule or we're running slightly behind. She doesn't explain why or anything, but those parts just remind us that we're a part of something. Instead, we never feel rushed or pressured to do anything. I think, at least with my group, we all introduced ourselves to each other. We talked about how did we find out about this. It was interesting to find out how people found out. Oh, I found about this on Facebook, or this was an Eventbrite thing, or I'm on the mailing list of the library, so I got this. There were a bunch of interesting ways that people were coming to it, and as some of the pieces were unfolding, not only were they just sort of thinking out loud of where they think it's going, but they're also pointing out things that they already like about the library, which was really cool because there's things that we, as visitors, may not have known that they've known because it's a spot that they go to all the time. So everyone who's participating kind of helps fill in the story as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite part of the?
Well, my thing is I like it when an expression asks you to hold two things in your mind at the same time, as opposed to just one thing. You sort of asked to hold two things, at least. And so I'm a great fan of the fact that they're very concrete clues, which I actually had concocted. And also there's this other aspect which we call the serendipity part. Because the one thing that I love about libraries is there's this, very sturdy classification system. There's actually two, the Library of Congress and the Dewey Decimal systems, which, if you know how they work, you can go right to the section where what you're looking for will probably be. What I liked about libraries is going in for one thing and ending up coming out with something completely unexpected. If you could find the section that you were looking for, then you just start looking around the section and you start to realize, oh my gosh, my understanding of what I'm searching for is expanding, and I don't even know exactly how or why. I used to have a bookstore that I'd go to before I'd go on vacation, and the wonderful woman who owned this bookstore was one of those booksellers who couldn't resist getting everything.
Uh-huh.
So over time, the stacks of books rose so high in there that it was actually blocking you from seeing what was on the shelves. You couldn't go in there trying to find something specific. You'd just say, Arlene, what do you have this book? And so I'd go in there on vacation, and I'd say, Arlene, what should I read? And she would go, do you know this guy? Do you know this writer here? Do you know this woman? And I say, no. And I'd end up with a stack of 10 books that I didn't know anything about. Mm-hmm. And they were really just her kind of intuitive sense of me and the fact that she had read everything. And she would just kind of go, wah! You know, it was like going to a fortune teller.
And she knows where everything is.
And she would just go, we just walk through, and she'd go like, with this, and she'd pull something down. And it never failed to make my vacation awesome.
Wow.
And so I love that about libraries. So we wanted to work a part of that aspect of libraries into it. So as you know, there are these exercises that you're kind of led through, and exercise is the wrong word, but they are what we call like serendipity generators. They cause you to look outside things you just normally think about and kind of think about some other things, and then you treat it like a puzzle, and you assemble the puzzle pieces, and you end up with something that then has a function or a value at another part in the play, in the piece.
And you find unexpected connections to all of that too. Yeah,
right.
I love the idea of pulling the books off the shelves and then or pulling them slightly off the shelves, and then now looking at those books and creating your own title.
Right. Out of all 5 of them.
Yeah, that was a great exercise. I thought it was really cool. And I think, for a second we're thinking like, oh my God, this work. There's just so much to think about. But then you just sort of clear your mind and you're like, what's the through line for all the books you pulled off the shelves? And you're just holding it, not even realizing how it's going to be used later on, and then you get to do something with it later.
Right.
And I thought that was really fun.
Yeah.
And I kept that. I wrote it on a bookshelf.
Well, there's smartphone modules that actually lead you through that, and you can type in the things you think about, and then it feeds back to you the list later on. It's pretty cool.
Great.
Pretty cool.
That'll be cool. I didn't. So I have a note for the smartphone experience, but I didn't take it because I would.
Well, if you go to the library steps and you text "final shoe," one word, "final shoe," to 215 GUMTHAT, GUMTHAT, it will text you back and lead you down a path that leads you to the Rosenbach, and then there's a thing to do there, and then it leads you to the star site, which is this really cool layering of the constellation Orion, a map of Philadelphia, and the location of the Free Library and the Rosenbach libraries.
Yeah.
And so somewhere in there's a mystery site we call the star site, because it corresponds to the central star in Orion's belt. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to explain on the radio, but you can see it when you see all the documents. That was my
thought when we were in the headquarters, which is my favorite spot. Because I think I saw an earlier picture of that room before it was outfitted. And
it wasn't a room.
Yes.
We built a room.
And to walk in there, it just feels like it should have always been there. And there's a part of me thinking, like, who works here? Who works in this spot all the time? This is the coolest part of the library. If I did work here, I'd be like, can you guys just leave this?
Right.
Can you leave this? Because it was so, the scenic design there is beautiful, and there's no theatrical lighting. I guess it's all special,
There's
if you think about it.
Lighting, but it's dim and it's
but it looks like
atmospheric.
something that is always there, and I think it adds to the excitement because we're in spaces that are not accessible to the regular visitor.
Yeah, it's like down in the basement. Nobody goes down there.
Yeah.
Like it's actually, I'm telling you, the security issues, the liability issues, all the ACA access, all of those issues, all those things we had to consider in terms of being able to go in there. And Jorg Cousineau designed that room, and it was its function was something else. There were bins in there with things to be pulped, and there was no walls.
Yeah.
So so it is a set. It is like a movie set where you suddenly realize oh my God, where'd this come from?
Yeah. So as we're here having this conversation, we are at the College of Physicians of Philadelphia, and halfway through this, I'm saying there are so many amazing buildings here in Philadelphia that an immersive experience like this could be so beneficial and so amazing. Like here.
Well, we have
a historical library here.
Practice. Did you know what used to be on JFK Boulevard?
In what specific place?
Well, that used to be called, that ran all the way from City Hall up to 30th Street Station.
Oh, it was a wall.
Right. What they called Philadelphia's Chinese Wall.
Yeah.
Great Chinese.
That covered the tracks.
It was viaducts where the train tracks ran on top, and so we had an opportunity to reference that in the walking tour from the Free Library to the Rosenbach.
Great!
You go through it, and it layers three histories, and now then the perpetrators of the central idea, and then Poe himself in 1841, what would have been there when you were walking. So sort of, but it does so in a way that's not just kind of now you're walking. No, it's not like just an academic tour kind of thing. It's cool.
What do you hope people? What do you hope the audience or the guests or the gumshoes in training? What do you hope they take away from this experience?
Well, we say go wide. Like sort of what do you see out of the corner of your eyes all the time? It's like Poe's detective Auguste Dupin was famous for saying, it's what you see out of the corner of your eye that's the most vivid. And so he says sometimes investigators try to go too deep. If you just broaden your vision, you'll see what a wider swath of reality.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one thing. I think the second thing is that how do you distinguish fact, fiction, and falsehood? All too often in the press these days, you see, well, it's either fact or it's fiction, and I disagree with that. It's possible to ascertain if something is false, but fiction is there to illuminate fact. Fiction, those of us who trade in fiction, I don't want to think of it as the opposite of fact. It's really sometimes how you get to the truth is by fictionalizing things, by separating it from scientific fact. And as we all know, scientifically, we can't. A hypothesis isn't even testable unless it's falsifiable. So falsehood is as important as fact. So, as a way of comparing what is to what isn't.
Yeah.
So you have to have all those things. Fact, fiction, falsehood is like a troika of ideas that I think are useful when trying to sort through what we call in the Bureau of Mysteries the fog, which is a kind of a beautiful at times but hazy disinformation increases the fog.
Yeah.
The surrounding things.
So, Gumshoe 101's subtitle should be a lesson in discovering fake news.
Well, fake news is like,
or how to identify fake news.
The part about fake news that is undeniable is the Rashomon effect. That no matter how you look at a story, there is a perspective on it. So we just have to acknowledge that perspective exists.
Yeah.
And if you look at it from this side, it looks like one thing. If you look at it from the other side, it looks like something else. So the question is not hurling the weaponized idea of fake news at each other. It's trying to distinguish fact, fiction, and falsehood.
Yeah.
And so it's tricky. You have to incorporate the two perspectives or three perspectives of the people who are narrating it. Mm-hmm. If they're, if you're from the North during the Civil War, you're going to have a different perspective than from the South. Yeah. So, that war still rages in the United States, as we all know. And so we are going to bring to bear our own perspective in how we tell stories. Yeah. The victors tell a story one way, the losers tell it another way. And so all of those things, if we can distinguish fact, fiction, and falsehood, if it can start to calm down. What's the fiction here? What's the fact?
I think people have to remember that, instead of we're always searching for someone to just tell us the truth, and we've put a lot of stock in certain individuals. Maybe it's a longtime reporter that is like a household name, so we just expect everything they say to be correct. But then you're hearing, like you said, you're hearing different sides of the story. You end up realizing that it's the way it's always been. You get both sides, and you form your own opinion. Yeah. And I don't know if you ever really find out.
Well, I think you can. I think it's a percentage game. I mean, here's the thing. Successful people, why are they successful? Often because they can hold more than one thing in their mind at the same time.
Yeah.
Second, they're oriented in time and space. They have a perspective that's reasonably true, that they can exert, and the dollars mount up, or what they do well, they sell well, whatever in a capitalist structure. But so as a culture, we like almost nothing less. We like nothing less than being disoriented. People who are successful don't like to be disoriented. Yeah. That's a problem for art, isn't it? Because art is partly about the disorientation. Yeah. What temporary? It's like throwing the cards in the air for a while and seeing where they land, and then piecing it all back together. But people don't like to be disoriented. So what's an artist to do? When you solve a mystery, what happens to the mystery? It goes away. It becomes not a mystery. The trick, in my opinion, is to get people to kind of love the mystery, not just the solution to the mystery.
Yeah.
We want to create sturdy intellects that realize that the mysteries just keep on coming. And the solution, that the pleasure is in the beauty of the mystery on some level. So, yes, provisional answer, and we move forward that way. Not, this is the truth, this is the falsehood. So, I think libraries have a special place now in this process of trying to understand, to reduce the level of the fog. And they're recognizing this. It's also true that if you want to destroy a culture, blow up the libraries.
Yeah.
Because that gets rid of the full registry of thoughts and ideas and culture in a particular society. It's like, they're doing that now. Libraries are being destroyed in this world now. And, burning books is a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
And so the record of humanity being in its books. So rare materials, the preservation of rare materials, the conservation of rare materials, and access to rare materials is important. And in the digital age, we're talking about the random search or the serendipitous search. What happens when you go to Google? You search, it looks at what did you search another time?
Yeah.
And it gives you more like this. So it's an algorithmic understanding of what you already like to give you more of what you already like. What Arlene did in that bookshop was something different from that. She knew me, and so her recommendations weren't more like this. They were something else. And I find that something else. There are, since I've been involved with libraries, there are library scientists trying to create search engines that do more what Arlene did. But it's not a natural thing for a computer to be able to see deeply enough into you to give you the serendipitous choice.
Huh. So instead of, so you ask her, what should I read? Instead of giving you an answer, she presents a mystery.
Right. She goes, well, see what this evokes. Not, you're going to love this.
Yeah.
It's like, this is going to unlock something, maybe. But I have to take the risk, too, to read the thing that has nothing to do with anything more like this.
Yeah.
So
for theater, well, for arts in general, to accept the mystery or, experience, accept the mystery, enjoy the ride. Embrace the mystery.
Right. So that would be maybe a motto of New Paradise.
That should be on the archway of every theater.
Well, it's on some level. Yeah.
Well, quite often when I sit down and have conversations, we'll talk about a show, and it's usually the actor who says, like, I don't want to give it away. And it's like, you're not giving it away. You're essentially throwing the cards in the air. If you tell me what happens in the middle of the second act, but it's out of sequence, so we're listening to it, just like you said earlier. It's hard to kind of get this across over the radio. We're just kind of talking about these are some elements to look for, but ultimately we still want to see how this is laid out. We don't decide not to go see another Shakespeare production when most of us know how they end. We are still going for the journey. We still embrace the mystery, but we enjoy the ride. And the ride is always different, So we never know. We never know how we're going to get there this time, even if a cross-country trip is going to get you from East Coast to West.
Right. It's true. Yeah, you just drive west, you're going to get there eventually. Do you know there's a way to get out of a maze?
How?
100%. Put your hand on the right wall and walk.
And that'll get you there?
Always.
Huh.
You just have to keep your hand on the right wall. The wall to your right. Make a choice. Stick with it. It will lead you to the exit every time.
There you go. So
do you believe that?
We'll find out. As soon as you said a maze, I was listening because I consume tons of podcasts when I'm not reading plays or seeing a theater show. There's a podcast called S-Town.
Yeah, I've heard, my wife's listening to it now.
And there's there's a whole lot of talk about a maze that one of the main characters of the story was creating on his property, and it wasn't quite where he wanted it to be, but everybody who saw it saw its potential, and was just kind of excited to see where it would go.
Yeah, well, if you go down into the basement of the library and just put your hand on the right wall, you'll eventually get where you want to go.
Yeah, but there's some dialogue that they say about hugging the walls, because there's a lot of action going on down here, and just to kind of be mindful.
Well, there are. I mean, there's we're right there with the construction workers and the maintenance folks,
security guards, and the employees, and everything's going along. Yeah. Well, I thought it was great, and I'm excited to see work like this. I think it's something that is absolutely not to miss. I see its potential in so many of the wonderful buildings that make up Philadelphia, like here. I've been trying to encourage some of the people on the program side, if you weren't planning to go, you have to go. There are ideas here that we could bring back.
Awesome.
Here.
Do you want me to help? I'm happy to invite them.
Yeah, so, the production is Gumshoe. It's part of the We, the Detectives event that is a collaboration with New Paradise Laboratories, the Free Library of Philadelphia, and the Rosenbach Museum and Library. What's the full name of the?
Well, it's now called just the Rosenbach.
Just
they,
the
They
Rosenbach.
say Rosenbach, actually.
The Rosenbach.
For whatever reason, but
the Rosenbach.
They call it the Rosenbach. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an extraordinary place.
Mm-hmm. So you do have to reserve, and these tickets are going like the hottest ticket in town, right?
Well, it's like there's only 30 people per
Yeah.
performance, so 4 groups. Mm-hmm. So, and we do 2 a day.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this now, you have until May 7th to experience this. You do not want to miss it. But if you can't join the group, there's a smartphone app that gives you the opportunity to experience this as well. But definitely make this a must for your schedule. So you can find out more information by going to newparadiselaboratories.org. And that link takes you everywhere you need to go. There's a video there that sort of teases what the experience is like. And I can't explain it. At the end, I was just, yes, this. You know how sometimes you post on social media and you're like, this, clap emoji, this.
Thank you very much.
That was a production, but everything New Paradise Laboratories has its hands in.
We have a show coming up in the fall called Hello Blackout, which is the second in our series. It started with Oh Monsters, which was last spring. And Hello Blackout is the continuing saga of the Kissimmee family, this time before the creation of the world. What pre-existed everything?
Oh, wow. Will that be Fringe Arts?
Yes.
Okay. So keep an eye on that.
Hello
Blackout. As part of Fringe Arts. Whit, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. I always think it's amazing when I get the happy birthday responses. I always think it's amazing the people that I get to share my birthday with, and you're one of them. So that's always something I have to look forward to every year. Besides the wonderful productions here, and everything you have your hands in is always sort of a must. Like we have to experience that. But thank you so much for taking the time. It's always a pleasure, and we will most likely return to chat with you for Hello Blackout. But get your tickets at newparadiselaboratories.org to find out more about Gumshoe as part of the We, the Detectives event series in collaboration with the Free Library of Philadelphia and the Rosenbach.
You got it.
Thank you so much for being on Rep Radio. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
This podcast is brought to you by Broad Street Review, the website where art and ideas meet. Since 2005, BroadStreetReview.com is the place knowledgeable Philadelphians turn for honest, independent, and passionate criticism and commentary about Philadelphia's dynamic arts scene. Join the conversation. It's free. You can reach Broad Street Review online at BroadStreetReview.com. Follow us on Twitter at Broad Street Review and like us on Facebook. To show your support for this podcast and our Philadelphia area arts coverage, please go to BroadStreetReview.com and click the button at the top of the page that says Contribute. Thank you for helping to keep the conversation going.